not to bury the lead, but I'm distracted by our guest who we won't acknowledge yet. His image changed from a delightful but little creepy owl to whatever that is. It's like a cow jackalope beef.
Well,
Wellington.
I think you really missed the earlier explosion in kittens, which hopefully will make an appearance a little bit later in the show. But with that, we are live, like really, really live.
Really live, like super live? How live? What are we talking? Scale of 1 to 6?
Yeah, I'm feeling
one.
live.
Let's see, 1 being like Abraham Lincoln and 8 being Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Oh,
Is that too far?
Oh, too soon.
That's not very live.
No. What's a 4 on that scale?
Yeah, I gave RBG a little bit too much credit, and now I'm gonna really regret it if something bad happens while we're live on the show. So I'm gonna exit gracefully and start the show at this very moment.
I love it.
Sounds good.
Oh, but there's no sound.
You've got to be kidding me. I did a trial run and I saw you guys like head bobbing.
Oh yeah, the trial run worked fine. It just didn't work when you went live. Evan, you're seeing.
You know what?
This is our shame. This is our bit.
Well, that's why you love Thursday nights. It's the same kind of thing. We're 3 security guys and we have tech issues all the time.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Try not to be intimidated by the stardom and the professionalism of the show so far, Evan. Should I try to start it again with music? Let's see what happens. This could be a Snapchat issue. We're trying it again. Oh, and then I gotta do this control thing. Let's see. Deep breath. Welcome to Hot Lou Happy Hour. I am your host, Lou Abramowski, or somewhat shamefully known as Hot Lou. I don't know.
I am more alive than Abraham Lincoln and Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Mike Franklin.
Oh gosh, what a show. This is super interesting because I learned that Facebook is no longer doing push notifications when you go live. So it's even more important for all the lunatics out there to start your watch parties and let your friends know that you're watching and hit the like button, hearts and comments or whatever. But today I'm super pumped to have Evan Francen joining us. He's the CEO of multiple companies, FRSecure being one of them. He's the author of a book called Unsecurity. Let's see. And co-host of the Unsecurity podcast. He, is a world famous Zoom background enthusiast. I think I hit all of the things, but I have to start out by asking you here, Evan, that we're on a Zoom call live streaming to Facebook. Is this like an internet security guy's worst nightmare?
Yeah.
This is awesome. Our show breaks all the time. We're basically Russian at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So what did I miss? I missed that you are also the ZZ Top of security.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't look like your typical CEO. That's for sure. And I love the fact that you guys do the show this way because if it was professional and I had to put some kind of suit or dress on or whatever, that wouldn't have been very fun. Just a lot, being in security, I've been in security for 30 years and lots of stories over those years. The Target breach, Blue Cross Blue Shield, all kinds of weird stuff. It's weird to be a security person.
Yeah. And something that I was going to wait till a little bit later in the show to bring this up, but one of the things that kind of occurred to me as now we're dealing with a human virus, like circling the globe over and over, it occurred to me today that it's been kind of a long time since there was a computer virus that circled the globe.
Thanks for putting that into the universe.
Yeah, here, hold on a minute.
Oh God, that is perfect. So, but seriously, is this a product of like consumers being more educated? Is it a product of like operating systems just being more secure? Is it platforms doing their best to kind of stop the things when the things happen? Some combination, or am I just making complete weird guesses?
No, man, I think, we talk about this a lot. A lot of work that we do too is called social engineering. It's, talking people into things, out of things.
Hmm.
Um, and so one thing that's really important in that is perception. And I think the public has a perception, with everything else going on, that, there aren't viruses, or, things aren't being hacked like all the time. But it's actually not true. There are thousands of viruses being released in the wild every day. The
Right.
antivirus companies can't keep up. Um, and things are right now, the biggest targets are people that are working from home. People are attacking VPNs. People are attacking email accounts. Those are probably the two most prevalent that we see. Uh, so actually, it's more dangerous today than probably ever. But I'm not a panicky guy. We cry wolf so much. It's we're still alive, so that's good.
Here, here.
Yeah. Yeah. So are you saying that that it's worse than ever because of the volume or the threat, like the magnitude of the threat, because our lives depend so much on just computers and networking?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of those. People have more stuff connected to the internet than they've ever had. We carry the internet with us everywhere we go on our phone. Our cars are connected to the internet. Medical devices are connected to the internet. Our
Yeah.
refrigerators are connected to the internet. So the attack surface is very, very vast, and most people uh, at home don't have any idea how to secure that stuff. Um,
Yeah.
so there's that,
And
and then there's a lot of things we can do with it, right? The
yeah,
Russians.
right. Well, we saw this last week, right? So I didn't get a chance to really dig in. But the reason that I, thought to reach out to Brandon, because he works with you, that I wanted to kind of better understand what had happened, because I mean, what happened last week was basically a bunch of just gigantic Twitter accounts were compromised, and somebody was running a Bitcoin scam by publishing on them, right? And that had to be the biggest security breach like in Twitter history, right?
Well, surprisingly, Twitter's had multiple breaches, and
Right.
some of them are much more destructive than this one. I think the thing that made this one so sensational was who it affected and how many people it affected. Each one of those accounts had millions of followers, uh, so that message went out to hundreds of millions of people. But really, the damage was pretty limited. I think 383 people actually fell for the scam, $117,000 lost. So it wasn't crazy in terms of its net effect, uh, but certainly the publicity was crazy. Oh,
What
Oh,
happened here? I'm good. Can you give us a little bit of a rundown of what happened? Because it sounded like it was more of a social engineering attack than it was a technical breach, right?
hmm yeah. Well, we can't swear on the show, right?
No, you can say whatever you want. We're actually challenging Zuck. We'll never know our limits if we don't test them.
yeah. If only we could come up with a two-word phrase that rhymed with Zuck. I don't know.
Oh, I can come
We'll
up with
workshop
one.
that. We'll workshop
I, I,
Yeah.
I actually have one if you want.
that.
Well, feel
Uh,
free. Can you give us a little bit of a rundown of exactly what happened?
yeah, so it's a combination of crappy design, crappy process design, and yeah, it was a social engineering attack. So rumor has it, and the official details haven't been released, but rumor has it that one or more Twitter employees were convinced into sharing uh, credentials, and then there was actually usernames and passwords that were shared on a an internal or meant to be an internal website that gave the attacker access to an admin tool.
Wow.
And then that admin tool was then used to reset passwords, and the rest is history.
Holy cow.
But what did it, so then it was like this basically kind of 2020 version of the old Nigerian prince scam, right? Where it was, hey, look, I just need a little bit of Bitcoin here, but I'll give you twice as much back. I mean, it was the actual,
Right.
wasn't it kind of that, right?
Yeah.
It's remarkable that there's still people that are going to fall for that in the world.
I know, but you'd be surprised at the things that people fall for, man. I mean, you share the roads with them, right? You see how they drive.
Well, and the Nigerian prince thing had legs. I mean, that worked out pretty well.
I think it's still going, right?
Oh yeah.
Oh, speaking of which, I got a 4:30 I got to get to.
They just extradited a Nigerian to face charges here in the U.S.
Wow.
Part of that, yeah. He's been charged. I don't know if he's on U.S. soil yet, but he's on his way.
Oh God, if he's an actual royalty, I'm just gonna.
No, he's not.
Oh damn it! That would have been the best day of my life.
No, you'd be surprised too at how poorly. I mean, there are very highly skilled attackers, right? But most attackers are not very highly skilled. They're like street thugs, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they do run themselves like a business, so they're always looking for the highest return on their investment, and the highest return on their investment is always to go after people. We have a saying in our industry that it's easier to go through your secretary than it is to go through your firewall. Right? Why would I spend 20, 30, 50 hours hacking your firewall and never potentially get through it when I could just make a 30-second phone call and just ask you for your password?
Wow. We've had some of this come up. I mean, even in our little firm, we had somebody send new wire instructions to a client who paid us via wire. And the client actually did it. I mean, to the tune of a lot of money we had the FBI involved and all that. It was just one of those things where, like, thankfully they thought to say, like, hey, that was weird that you sent those instructions via email versus over the phone like you normally do. And we were like, what? And it turned out that the email was stolen. I mean, somebody had made a clone account or whatever you call it. I don't know. And then we had another one where one of our employees very, very helpfully said, hey, I got all those iTunes gift cards that you requested, and I've scratched off all the numbers. I got them all in an email, but where did you want me to send them? And my business partner and I looked at each other like, wait, what? What are you talking about?
Right.
Here's the email that asked you to buy $1,000 of iTunes gift cards and scratch off the numbers.
Yeah. Have I ever asked you to do that ever before? I mean, have you met me? Have we talked before?
Yeah, he doesn't work here. Not because of that.
Well, in the business email compromise. So for businesses, that is a very, very popular attack vector. It's not. There's a lot of steps to it, but it's not complicated at all, right? It's first convince you to give me your username and password, and then I've got your email. Who I'm really targeting is accounts payable or accounts receivable, one side of the equation. And once the attacker gets your email, they then create email inbox rules. So they'll sit there and watch your email for a little while to try to figure out the pattern and who you do business with. And once they figure out like who's paying you or who you're paying, depending again on what side of the equation you're on, they'll start inserting themselves into the conversation, and you have no idea because they've created mailbox rules that any replies go to trash.
Yep, that's pretty much exactly what happened here.
Yeah.
Wow.
The last one I investigated, it was $832,000 in unauthorized ACH transfers, and the FBI wouldn't take up the case.
Really?
It wasn't significant enough.
Wow.
That dollar amount keeps going higher and higher.
All right, I'm taking notes here. What is the height? What's the height of the number?
I don't know. I don't even know what it is anymore.
The minimum amount.
And $1.
But that's a common thing we talk about too in amongst security people is what the hell keeps us good? what keeps us on the good side. Because if we were motivated by money, I mean, most of us would be many, a millionaire many times over.
Yeah. Mike and I have talked about it on the show like several times now about how, I think there's this notion that most people are good, and I vehemently disagree with that because I don't think it's most. I think it's very nearly everyone. you know, and there's a couple of like platitudes that can go along with that. One being, I think, one of Mike's favorite sayings about how do not attribute to malice what you can attribute to incompetence. Is that what you usually?
Yeah, ignorant, incompetence. It depends on.
There's lots of
So,
incompetence.
yeah. So Evan, out of curiosity, my favorite like piece of media of like any kind is a podcast called Reply All. Are you familiar with them?
No. Mm-mm.
I'm gonna have to send, and we'll include this in the show notes. There's a couple of amazing episodes where they went above and beyond. It's just these two guys that started this weird podcast about really all internet things, and they've done these couple of security breach, like investigative journalism things, where like the owner of the podcast company that they're in, his Uber account was hacked. And they ended up like circling the globe trying to find exactly what the scam was. They also have a whole, I think, two episodes dedicated to going to one of those Indian like call center farms where they're trying to scam people. So we'll include those in the show notes. But I think you'll enjoy that.
Well, chances are those places have now everything's IoT. They probably have cameras set up, so we could just hack into their camera system if you want. We go there now.
Should we do that right now?
Live demonstration. No, I'm a good guy. I'm a good guy, Lou.
Well, I'm a good guy too, and I'm going to go figure out a way to make some money off the internet for the next few minutes. But I'm going to watch because this is I'm fascinated by all this stuff, and it's a brave new world that we live in. It's neither brave nor new, but it's a world.
It is a world.
Evan, it's great to meet you, Lou.
Yeah,
I'll see you next Tuesday.
Sounds good. All right. So the other thing
you're hot Lou. He's hot Mike. Can I be hot Evan?
Yeah. Didn't I? I thought I already sent that over to you. The branding gear. Did I not?
No. The attacker probably got it.
Yeah, it could have been intercepted on the way over to you. Well, I have to.
For the Googles.
Yeah, so a couple of my other favorite things are these like Scam the Scammer type YouTube channels. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to remember there's one like massive one that I just cannot remember that they're often like frequently trying to troll them. But there's this one amazing YouTuber named Rosie. It's IRL Rosie, so in real life Rosie. She also happens to be a voice actor and a singer. And she does an amazing job. So, and I've been trying to get her on the show because she's hilarious, and she, baits people into calling her. And we'll definitely put that in the show notes. And I recommend you check it out because are you like watching that kind of stuff for entertainment value, or are you like so deep in the weeds that it's hard for you to be like entertained by that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it is. You do get deep in the weeds. When I disconnect, I disconnect. I ride a Harley and hit the road, get out, try to get away from it all, because you see so much crap all the time. I hate people getting taken advantage of, and so while I do appreciate the entertainment, I think it takes a certain skill to be able to do that, and make it kind of fun.
Right.
But we're trying to figure out, how to help people more like at home, trying to devise tools, something because, so we're always in the weeds so much, Monday through Monday minus an hour or two when, you do disconnect. Because there's always an incident happening. There's always, there's always work to do. So, yeah, this is me, man. It's boring to be me. I don't know why anybody would want to do this.
I appreciate that there's some kind of, voyeuristic interest in some of that stuff. Like, you just mentioned the like security cameras at one of these, Indian scam farms or something like that, where, I have to admit, like that just like gets me excited thinking about like this opportunity to like spy in on somebody running one of these like weird operations or something like that. And I gotta imagine that happens too, along with just like the curiosity of being able to like break into a lock and things like that. Because as I understand it, some of the biggest threats right now are like young teenagers, because there's often like this, there's an immunity for them in some way, given that they aren't 18, and charging them with adult crime can be difficult. But is that something that you see, like that these young teenagers are using that as an opportunity to like sharpen their skills and know that the consequences are not as serious?
Yeah, there are some for sure. I think most teenagers are sort of oblivious to the threats.
Sure.
They're on TikTok, they're Snapchat, whatever the latest app is.
Yeah.
Uh, the teenagers that kind of have an aptitude for hacking, we're doing a lot to try to catch them early
Hmm.
and steer them in the good direction. I think most of them go that way. There are occasional teenagers who uh, usually they're script kiddies. We call them script kiddies. Um, who cause more damage than really anything else because they don't really understand the details of what it is that they're doing. They do it for the cool factor, and
Right.
then all of a sudden, knock a water pump in a city offline. It's like, dude,
Yeah.
what are you doing?
Yeah.
But
And they
there's
might not even be doing it at the cool factor. They might just not even understand the consequences, and they just like are curious if they can do it or not, right?
yeah, there's some of that. There's some of that, but a lot of them like to brag, right? So if I can,
Sure.
which reminds me back in the day when I started in security in '92. Actually, that's when was paid for it. Um, and it was all bragging rights then. There really wasn't a money motivation. The hacking groups that you see today, they really didn't exist. Those kind of came along in maybe the late '90s, kind of the .com.
Right.
Um, and teenagers are still kind of like that. They love to brag about, brag to their friends, get followers. A lot of them, their self-esteem comes from the number of followers they have, the number of likes they get.
Right.
Uh, so
Yeah.
most of them don't know how to profit from it either, thankfully.
Yeah. Well, I have to imagine like in the 90s, that had to be like the heyday. As I'm just thinking about this, like I knew uh, one of my friends in high school figured out a way to hack AOL so he could get unlimited internet time on other people's bills. And then I was just thinking with Mike, we used to just do this like fun little prank where we sent out emails as somebody else, which you could easily do 20 years ago. All you had to do is just change the from field in your
Right,
email. And
right.
we used to just do pranks, or we created these like funny memes, which Mike and I have pledged to do an episode of the normal podcast on this, that you might remember 20 years ago, people would circulate these, what you see on Facebook all the time now. It's like 78 questions about somebody personally, and they just answer all of them, and then they forward to their friends, and that gets forwarded. Well, we'd go in character and change the from field to like Satan,
Oh,
and then we'd
right.
answer, and then we'd answer like what our favorite Go-Gurt was, and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So I gotta imagine the 90s just felt like it had to have been just like opportunities all over the place, and yet somehow we survived.
Yeah. Everything was new. It was exciting. And there's still that sense of excitement today. They're just, I think maybe more consequences. We were doing a lot of things that were illegal, but we didn't think of them as being illegal, right?
Right.
If you remember, stealing music, right? I mean, that was hugely
Yeah.
popular. If you got MP3s back then, same with movies. I remember I stole my copy of Windows 95 before it was released from Microsoft. I took it off a Microsoft bulletin board
Wow.
server.
Wow.
Yeah, 26 floppy disks is what it took to install. Uh,
That's
but
amazing.
Yeah, and you didn't think of those things, and then things turned dark. And I think the darkest part, the part that is probably the biggest, uh, probably draws the most anger from me, is kids and humans being, human trafficking and sex trafficking, kids being. That's so. I wish parents knew how prevalent that is today. And it's getting worse because parents aren't really involved with what applications your kids are using on their phones. Their kids are going to bed,
Hmm.
and I think a lot of it comes from you and I. I don't know how old you are, but I'm certain. I'm pretty sure I'm older than you. I grew up. I didn't grow up with a phone. I had to go to a payphone if I wanted to call my parents or
Oh yeah.
whatever. And
Yeah.
then things went really, really fast.
Hmm.
Technology went like lightning speed, and now everybody's got an iPhone or an Android device, and I mean everything is. And it went too fast for most people to be able to comprehend and secure.
Yeah.
So that
And it's only accelerating, right?
right,
Yeah.
and so that age group, my age group, isn't doing a very good job teaching our children the right ways to use technology because we were never there.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really interesting point. I'm just thinking about, um, you know, I, I mean, there's a thousand things, but like the acceleration point now, the barrier to entry seems to be a little bit higher on the hacking side, but not on the social engineering side. Nothing has changed, but the consequences are much higher than they were like 25 years ago. And and not only that, there's so many more ways to like cover your tracks. Like the Bitcoin thing last week, like everybody can track the transactions that happened, but
Right.
once they end up wherever they end up, they're irreversible and almost untrackable to a source. And then you have the dark web, you have VPNs, and it seems like there's so many opportunities to cover up this stuff. And then on layer on top of that, that people are voice chatting. 11-year-olds are voice chatting on Fortnite with 35-year-olds. Where
Well,
do
and
you?
yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, yeah, it's crazy how hyper connected we are without knowing it. You can't buy a TV anymore without it being a smart TV,
Hmm.
and most people don't know how to. I mean, everything that runs on code, which means it's an application that was programmed by somebody,
Hmm.
uh, has bugs. Every
Right.
every single application, and so your TV has bugs in it, and most people don't know how to patch their TVs. Even people in our industry, probably don't patch their TVs. And now your refrigerator is connected. You've got your baby monitors connected. You've got your cameras connected. You've got Alexa. I mean, God, we can't live without Alexa. God forbid we get off the couch and flip a channel. I mean, it's just crazy, this convenience, yet we're making our lives so complicated. And the rule is, complexity is the enemy of security. The more complex you make your life, the harder it is to secure it. Um, yeah.
Yeah. You've brought up smart refrigerators twice now, and I started Googling this because wasn't there like a very famous hack like a year and a half ago with like refrigerators? And now I can't remember what it was.
There's so many now. I don't know which one in particular, because they're hacking them is trivial because most people leave the default usernames and passwords. They don't know how to change those. So
Right.
it's not even hacking, right? I just those usernames and passwords are well known by all attackers,
Hmm.
and so that's the first thing we're going to do is just try to go through the front door. If the front door is open, why break the window?
Yeah. It's so funny that you say that because I deliberately leave my I shouldn't say this live on Facebook, but I'll often leave my stuff unlocked because if it's not like a lock on my front door is going to stop somebody who really wants the contents of my house,
True.
right? Like
Yep.
they're so if they're going to steal it, I don't want to also have to repair my front door, like if or the window, right?
Yeah.
And maybe that's inviting somebody to kind of easily access it, but
Well, you'd be
um,
surprised at some of the things I do too. I mean, I live in a town where it's a very low crime rate. Um, and I leave a lot of things unlocked that I probably shouldn't. Not for that reason, but mainly because I'm lazy, I think. Um, but
Yeah,
most hackers are more opportunistic
sure.
than, so they would try your door. Oh, it's locked. Try the neighbor's door. Oh, it's open
Hmm.
in
Yeah.
most cases. Not all
Well, and
cases.
I like to think that if a robber is trying the door and it's unlocked, that they think somebody's home too. But
Yeah.
maybe I'm naive.
You
Well,
never know.
yeah. So we've got an interesting question here from one of the loyal lunatics. We like to call our viewers the emphasis on the Lou, on the
Yeah.
lunatics.
You have lunatics.
Yeah, we do.
Gosh, I'd have to have Evanatics. That's weird.
Yeah, well, we'll workshop it
Yeah.
next time you're on. Um, but Rich Simon said he doesn't worry about getting hacked, but he does worry pretty seriously about artificial intelligence. And I think we recently just saw a little bit of that happening between two mega giants in the tech world, right? Because Elon Musk and Zuckerberg disagree on how big of a threat artificial intelligence is. Sounds like Zuck is really in the camp that artificial intelligence is going to usher in this like amazing utopia as long as we're careful. And Elon Musk says like there's no avoiding the fact that robots are going to become sentient and we're going to look like fools compared to them unless we somehow inject ourselves into them. But that might also not be possible. Like, how are you feeling about the whole thing?
Well, thankfully, we still have time. It's not necessarily imminent, but yeah, these are tough questions that have to be figured out. They have to be answered. There are a lot of things that bother me about AI. AI has always got bias.
Mm-hmm.
It's never just strictly objective, right? So whoever coded that AI coded bias, whether
Right.
they wanted to or not, they did it. There's also bugs. Every application that's ever developed is going to have bugs. So what happens when an AI has a vulnerability or um, something that's broken in it? Will we even know, or will we just rely on it so much and just take whatever it's giving us as gospel? And I know that there are people who say, "Well, you create an AI to fix the AI." Again, more bugs. You're making the
Who
problem
watches The
worse.
Watchmen?
Yeah, you're making the problem, even worse.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of deep discussions about, um, and AI truly won't ever be like our same kind of eye, right? Our intelligence, it'll never get there because of the way we're built. We're built. Human beings are built as analog creatures, which means that we're on a wavelength, right? You never kind of know where we're at. Moods, circumstances, we just do random stuff too.
Yeah. Both individually and collectively.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And whereas computers, you can make them emulate that, but they can't truly do that. They're always digital. They're discrete. They're on or off. Um, so yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with AI. A lot of people there's a huge amount of just misinformation about AI. Um, People generally fear things that they don't understand more than the things that they do understand. So to help with, whatever fear people have about AI, just continue to do your own research. And the more you understand it, the more you'll be comfortable with it. It's the same with hacking. Um, Everybody lives with a certain amount of risk, right? Do you know what the risk is, or are you ignorant? If you're ignorant, you're kind of just a sheep, right? You just take what you're going to get because you're going to get it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you do get educated, the point isn't to try to stop everything. The point is to try to understand it as much as you can, so then you can accommodate it. Right? It's like when
Yeah.
I drive. It's like when I drive on the road. I can't guarantee that I'm not going to get smacked into by somebody else, but I take proper precautions and manage that risk. Same kind of thing.
Yeah. But to your point about like even educating yourself, sometimes it can be even a little bit more dangerous occasionally because it can create this like false sense of security. I actually went through this earlier this year because, I never got into the like security side or networking side of computer science. I was more on like front end web development kind of stuff.
Mhm.
But, you know, I I can code and I generally know what's possible. I might not be able to build it myself, but I got a text message back in January. I happened to be traveling, and it was, from one of these generic text messages that said, "Hey, your card was used to make this transaction," and it gave me the last four digits of my card. Uh, are you traveling right now? Reply with 1 or 0 for yes or no. And I replied 1, and then I got a phone call a couple of minutes later saying, "This is US Bank. We noticed you're traveling. Um, to confirm your identity, we need you to type in your PIN." And you know, I, everything about it felt so real,
Right.
because it just happened to be while I was traveling. They knew my card number, they knew my phone number. The only thing they didn't have was the PIN for my card. And thankfully, this was the only thing that saved me is I just won't reveal any sort of personal information to incoming phone calls, period.
Bingo. And that is such a good rule right there. I wish everybody would adopt that same rule.
Yeah. Otherwise, I mean, I was toasted, and the person on the other line like could not have sounded more official. They like they just it wasn't even about official. It was, in fact, it was like almost informally official. Like every time you get like a big bank's customer service rep, they are not very friendly or
Right.
professional,
Right.
right? They're always a little bit I don't know, rough around the edges. The connection is a little rough.
Underpaid. Right.
Exactly. And they what saved me, I think, because I was like getting close, is they started to kind of get rude with me when I said, "Look, I'm not giving this personal information, but I'll call back in a second to confirm everything." And they're like, they nearly got me. But yeah, I think that one rule is really what saved me this time around.
Yeah. Never divulge any sensitive information on any communication you didn't establish. The same
Yeah.
thing from emails, the same thing from phone calls, the same thing from text. Um, you know, confirm it and, reach out the other way, right, to a known number. And another thing with
Yeah.
social engineers is, we do a lot of work on what's called our pretext. So it's building our story, right? It's nothing, I mean, it ends up being nothing more really than acting. So I'm going to act the part of this US bank, call center person. Uh, and so when you build your pretext, you're thinking of all the objections. Well, what happens if Lou says this? Well, then I'm going to say that, so I can keep the story going to get to the
Yeah.
point of where I want. And that if people ever feel like playing games with social engineers, the way you get them, and it's hard sometimes because some of them are really good, is you just get them out of their pretext. Keep asking them
Interesting.
keep asking them questions, because eventually you're going to get to a question where they didn't practice their response. I've been
Yeah.
busted myself. I got busted by a police officer in Las Vegas. This was during Black Hat and DEF CON,
Okay.
two of our biggest conferences every year for security people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Normal people probably don't want to go there because it's just
Yeah.
it's just weird, unless you just want to watch, but
Yeah.
leave everything electronic at home.
Don't get too. That's another reason not to get within 6 feet of people if not every one of your card is chipped, right?
Well, and Bluetooth has got a range of about 100 feet, so stay like 100 feet away
Yeah.
from everybody.
Yeah.
But I got busted, and the pretext was I was acting as though and this was for a test / competition. My pretext was I was a student from the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, in the sociology department, and we're doing a demographic study on people who visit Las Vegas. So would you help me as a student participate in my study so I can get a good grade? And most people, everybody said yes. So then I'll ask you a bunch of information. I'll ask you your name, your address, what's your job, income level, on and on. And people will just give that to you.
At a security conference?
Yeah, yeah. People, pe-
Amazing.
yeah, people were afraid of, even the security people were afraid. They still are. Every year, it's where are the social engineers? You know, where's that class or that group? Because
Right.
we want to steer clear of them. Uh, but out of the corner of my eye, I caught as I was talking to this lady. Out of the corner of my eye, you know, you notice when somebody's walking deliberate versus
Hmm.
casual.
Yeah.
This was a deliberate approach, and I could see out of the corner of my eye, and I was like, you know, something's funky with that guy. But I went on to my next target, right, and then I noticed that he was following me, and so I'm like, what the hell? So he says, excuse me, what are you doing? I said, oh, you know, I'm a student at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, doing a demographic study for my sociology, you know, department. So it's just a simple survey, and he goes, who's your professor? And I hadn't pretext that.
Yeah.
It seemed so obvious. Like, who the hell wouldn't pretext your
Yeah.
professor? And you could have, in hindsight, you can come up with anything, right? Oh,
Right.
it's Professor Johnson or
Exactly. Yeah.
whatever. But when you're in the heat of the moment, if you get just off a little bit, it's obvious. It's like, oh shit, I don't.
Yeah.
Turns out he was a police officer from British Columbia, and one of the people that I had socially engineered was his wife.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, just picked the wrong target.
Yeah.
Yeah, for a moment. But it's so interesting to hear that about the pre-scripting, because I did a telemarketing job for about 10 weeks after my freshman year of college, and I was just trying to get people to make appointments to see if they could make any money refinancing their homes. And it was shocking to me. You know, I was barely 19 years old, and my trainer had showed me there was a 2-page thing that I had to memorize, and it was everything everybody ever said. And I'll tell you, I made like 300 phone calls in my 4-hour shift every night and
Dang.
worked for 10 weeks. I'll bet, I'll bet maybe 10 people that whole summer said something that was not on the script.
Right.
Like every single objection was on there. Like,
Yeah.
we're in the middle of dinner where, we just refinanced, the credit's not good enough. It's just like every single thing. And we had an answer pre-programmed for every single one of those. And it was just about memorizing it. And yeah, getting those people and every time somebody came off script, I just started sweating.
Right. Yeah.
So,
And you're like,
yeah.
hold on, you know, put them on hold and try to, I don't know.
Yeah.
Most social engineers who aren't very good will just hang out.
Yeah.
Or if they're in person, they'll just turn around and try to walk quickly the other way.
I definitely hung up a couple times or just went silent.
Yeah.
So you said one thing a little bit ago that I want to come back to, because you had mentioned that in artificial intelligence, ultimately, even if it's computers programming other computers, that you daisy chain it all the way up to a human doing it. And there's probably some biases in there. And you may have seen over the last year or so, people have really been talking. Well, I shouldn't say that. It's probably been 4 years, but it seems to be kind of coming to a head a little bit more. And the New York Times did a specific podcast called Rabbit Hole on the YouTube algorithms that were programmed. And they were really programmed with machine learning to maximize time on the platform, not optimize time on the platform that's healthy for the viewer.
Sure.
And there's gotta be, I think that's something that really concerns me, is these runaway biases that it takes years now. Because what we've learned is that a lot of the people, these growing sentiments around anti-vaccination, around QAnon stuff, around these videos that don't really have any substance behind them, but they just put creepy music in and just put 7 events strung over 5 decades and pretend they're all obviously related. And it took us years to identify that the social networks YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, I think are kind of the big four that seem to have a lot of influence. I don't see Google seems to escape that in the search results, or
They're
at least
sneaky.
they seem to escape the public scrutiny. And I don't understand how they get away with it. I think it's just
No,
because they stay silent.
they're the ones that creep me out the most, actually,
I
Google.
I think so too. I think people think Facebook doesn't, there's an app on your phone and it can track some things. It's not the full operating system.
Right.
That people are carrying around in their pockets. So I'm curious.
And whenever companies deviate from their core, like their original purpose, I would question it, right? Google's original purpose was, really search engine indexing and, all that stuff. And now you're into everything.
And let's not forget their original motto.
Right.
What was it? Do no evil?
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
Right. And now they are the epitome. But you see that happen all the time, where when people get a little taste of power, when people get a little taste of money, things change. Right. And so, as you think about, AI, and you think about bias, and you think about all these things that are going on in the world, there's somebody in power. There's somebody using these things for a reason. And it's not just to make your life better.
Right.
If you think that that's the reason, you've been socially engineered, because that's not the reason. The reason is to either sell you something, get you to do something, because that's the world we live in today. You see it in the news, right? You see, where do you get your where do you get the true source of news? There's a bias on whatever side you're going. The same thing happens in the whole AI debate and in big corporate America. It's really, when you think it all through, it's kind of creepy. I'm become kind of anti-AI. Plus, I'd say 95+% of the things that people call AI are not AI.
Yeah.
It's the way programs have always worked.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think what I was kind of leading into with that question was really like, what are the threats that you think will become like part of mainstream conversation 5 years from now? Is there going to be if cryptocurrency, like I couldn't believe this. The other day I bought a digital product online that like, it wasn't even like a weird digital product. It was pretty straightforward, but they allowed payment with Coinbase and with Bitcoin, which I was impressed and surprised by that. So, 5 years from now, it seems like cryptocurrency payments online are going to be probably more widely adopted and understood by people. But the dark web might be more widely adopted, or VPN usage, or whatever. What does it feel like to you will be like the YouTube search algorithms, or the like Facebook, Spygate kind of scenario, like 5 years from now?
Yeah, there's so much opportunity, man. For if it depends on what the motivator is and who's the adversary. I think.
Is it Skynet?
No, no. I'm still concerned about our enemies, foreign enemies more.
Right.
There are certain parts of our infrastructure that are really, really, really insecure. Our power grid is, it's okay, but we seem to have neglected gas and water. Our ag industry is in shambles with information security. If I wanted to kill, a few million people, that's where I'd go. And you're talking a few million. You're not talking like taking on the Trade Center with 5,000 people.
Right. Yeah. And like, it occurs to me too, like, with agriculture, as I understand it, basically every tractor in America now is run through either Bluetooth or Wi-Fi across their entire field, and is, not quite autonomous, But, you know, that's something I think about like way too often now, is like all of these motor vehicles, whether they're a gigantic $1 million tractor or a $28,000 Honda, now are connected to the internet. And
Right.
it's kind of shocking to me that that hasn't been like this bigger story right now.
Yeah, and I'm a guy who's in tech and been in tech for a really long time. I'm starting to get to a point where I'm becoming more and more anti-tech because we just can't. It's getting out of control. I would much rather work on a 1970 Pontiac Le Mans than my
Yeah.
F-250. I mean, I look at the F-250. I'm like, what the hell is this? It'll take me a while to figure out how to hack the ECM.
Yeah.
I probably shouldn't be doing that. And most people probably don't do that, but I want to know how it works.
Yeah. And the right to repair, right? I
Right.
mean, that's the thing that farmers are going through hardcore, is like it costs them $50,000 just to like move the tractor from the
Right.
farm to the repair shop, and then another 50 back plus the bill, when 15 years ago they could just order the part and fix the tractor themselves. And now things are very different.
So I'm hoping, I'm hoping that sometime within the next 5 years that we just sort of have an awakening and kind of just slow down a minute, take inventory of why do I need a dishwasher connected to the internet? I mean, truly, why do you need that?
Yeah.
It's cool. And everybody likes the digital display, and man, it's nice that when I'm at work and I get a text saying, my dishes are done. Why?
Yeah.
I mean, you're just making yourself more and more open to attacks. Medical devices are all connected to the internet. Your cars are all connected to the internet. There are going to be significant losses of life, because that's just unfortunately how people work. They think, oh, it's not going to happen to me. It's not going to happen to me. Like the person who said, I'm not worried about being hacked. You probably haven't been hacked then.
You might have been saying it in jest too.
Yeah, well, and maybe you have been hacked, but I'm like truly hacked, because I've dealt with a lot of people that they're still picking up the pieces, and some of them have PTSD from it. And I'm not saying you have to be paranoid and scared, but just slow down a minute and ask yourself, do I really need this? And if I do need this, how am I going to secure it? What are the proper things for me to do? Because now the way the world works, information security and privacy and safety can no longer be separated.
Yeah.
It wasn't that long ago where, I could hack your computer and not kill you.
Yeah.
And now we're getting to a point where I can hack your computer and kill you.
Yeah. That's no joke.
No. And where ransomware takes on a whole nother meaning. Like, what happens if I hold your insulin pump, pay me my ransom, or I'm going to kill you?
Or an entire hospital.
Right. Yeah. So I just, we need to do something. We need to do more. We need to wake up.
Yeah. Well, with that, we've taken up enough of your time here.
Did I get too deep and serious for you?
No,
I should have been more like fun.
No, I wanted it to be melodramatic. I want people to understand how serious this is, because my final question here is, I signed up for my primary email the day it became available, which was April 1st, 2004. I've had it ever since. Mm-hmm. And I think it's time to retire it, because no matter, I worry that is like the core vulnerability that I have right now. Like, getting access to that gets access to almost everything that I have. And it almost makes sense to completely retire it. And, even though I have a massively secure password, two-factor authentication on it. But my question is, like, let me tell you my password and can you tell me if it's secure enough?
No, I don't want to know.
I'm just kidding.
I don't want to know your password, man. Here, I'll tell you. I'll tell you mine now.
No, I'm joking, of course. But this is like, I want people to appreciate the seriousness of this.
Yeah, and you can have fun with it too. I mean, I do appreciate the humor part. On the security shit show, which we do on Thursday nights, which is
nice.
It's Hacker People, and we go. There is no script. Just like I love this kind of format with shows.
Yeah.
And you'll notice that security people, when they're in their own clan, their own herd, they let their guard down a lot more if we've got a trust. So
yeah,
we'll talk about some pretty deep stuff, and it gets kind of funny, a lot of laughter. But one of the things we're going to do is we're going to start going door to door like Jehovah's Witnesses, and start spreading the gospel of good information security.
Well, that's really where I wanted to end this, is like, so people, it looks like, so your website, it looks like just evanfrancen.com, and that's EVAN FRANCEN .com.
And I don't do
looks
a lot
like you've got everything there, right?
Yeah, I don't do a lot there. Really, the companies is kind of where things happen most. Securitystudio.com is the place where I spend most of my time now, because it's more of an awareness piece. The S2Me, that personal information security risk assessment tool, is something that we're working with Chubb, the big insurance company, a few states, state of North Dakota, state of Minnesota, and who else are we working with? The cybercrime victim. Gosh, I can't even remember the name. Anyway, it's a big group trying to help people more at home. That's where I spend most of my time now. So that's all Security Studio. Oh, look at that. It's a book.
Yeah, it's a book. So
I can get you a copy of that for $20.
Perfect. And it looks like people can even get it on their Kindle Unlimited if they've got access to that. So, and it looks like this is probably something that I'm guessing that no matter how familiar you are with information security, you can probably get something out of it, right?
Yeah, it's meant to be. We try to write it in plain English. Not not geek speak.
Yeah.
Which can be a challenge. Yeah, we do that a lot. I call them normal people. There's in the United States today, there's about 900,000 security people like me.
Oh, wow.
Who do security for a living. You put that into context, you have 330 million people in the United States. So most people are not like me. And if you recognize that, you try to speak a language that other people speak. If I want you to understand what it is I'm saying. Same with the other way. And it's not like, I don't know have you ever talked to security people before when you felt kind of intimidated or felt like,
oh yeah,
there's a big ego on the other side of this?
I mean, I think computer science suffers from that in a huge way, right? Like the overconfidence that you see in computer science. I see that in some other industries, but I think it is kind of a little bit of a challenge, and it ends up being problematic in both ways. You've got actually these super competent people who handle it very well, kind of behave almost indistinguishably from the overconfident people who screw up the decimal point, like in Office Space, and end up stealing millions of dollars instead of 25,000. So yeah, I've definitely been there.
Well, I try to be a normal guy. You know what I mean? I mean that because this is who I am. I just happen to know a lot about security and know how to code stuff and do dumb things. But it's the normal people. It's the 330 million others that we need to do something, because we're all connected. Like your crappy security, my neighbor's crappy security, which I've gone over and talked to him about, which he's since fixed because I helped.
Yeah.
But his bad security affects me.
Right.
We're connected.
Yeah. So I guess, the two questions I have are just like, what can people do as novices to help spread the gospel without buying, one of your uniforms and going door to door like you intend to do, Jehovah's Witness style?
You can hang with us.
Okay. Well,
you want to be
Evan's website.
You want to be the third? You'll be Brother Lou. I'm Brother Evan, and we'll be bringing Brother Ryan with us.
Perfect. All right. You're Hot Evan when you're on this show. I'm Brother Lou when I'm door knocking to save people's Wi-Fi security on the WEP security. Right.
Well, and one of the things that people can do is we created a free tool. It's 100% free. It's always going to be free. I cannot stand in our industry, we have these people I call them money grabbers.
Yeah.
It's the bait and switch tactics. It's the,
Oh yeah.
I just want your money.
Yeah.
So
Exploit fear. Yeah.
right. So our tool it's free. It'll always be free, and it'll continue to evolve as people tell us more about what they like and what they don't like to make it useful. But it's https://s2me.io. And it's a personal information security risk assessment tool that you can
Awesome.
go take, and it's give you a whole bunch of recommendations. Take your time going through it. Yeah.
This is awesome. I love this.
Oh.
Okay, we're gonna put this in the show notes for sure, and I'll drop it in the comments right now too.
Yeah, and that's the same tool that the state of North Dakota, I think we'll be deploying to all their citizens, and we'll try to make this more common knowledge. Just raise the awareness, raise the education level of people on these things.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And I guess it sounds like we've already kind of covered where people can find you, right? Your website, your book, your podcast, your multiple companies, which I think mostly are more B2B, but you've got this free tool, the s2me.io, which will be in the show notes. We left it in the comments. Is there any other place that people can connect with you?
I quit drinking, so we can't go to the bar together anymore. It was like 19.
You could.
Yeah, oh God. Yeah. I'm not going there again. Yeah, I mean, LinkedIn, Twitter, I tweet, somewhat a lot. So I'm just at Evan Francen, it's just my name scrunched together. I purposely try to make myself accessible. So don't feel intimidated like it's a waste of time to reach out to me about really anything security related. Don't talk to me about wardrobe or etiquette, stuff like that. Not my thing.
Or the newest IPA.
Yeah, right. Or choice of razors.
Except for the scalp, maybe.
Yeah, maybe that.
Yeah, I'm recently matching you, by the way. This cut is only about 3 weeks old.
I like it. Now you just got to put it down here.
Yeah, well, I've got a little bit too much Native American blood in me. It only grows briefly here, and it's been about 6 days since I've shaved.
Oh, that's cool. So you're Native American?
Oh yeah,
that's very cool.
Yeah, born and raised on the Fond du Lac Indian Reservation up north in Minnesota. So
is there a Fond du Lac there's a Fond du Lac, Wisconsin?
There's a Fond du Lac City in northern Wisconsin, but the Fond du Lac Indian Reservation kind of covers quite a bit of the area around Duluth.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah,
that's cool, man.
Yeah, Brandon and I have talked a lot about that actually more recently. Yeah.
Well, that's another thing too. I mean, when you do reach out to me, I'm very interested in people's perspectives on things. So when you take the S2Me, let us know what worked and what didn't. The worst thing to do is to take it and go, yeah, this is a piece of crap, and then never tell us.
Right.
We're all in this together, and we're trying to help as much as we can. So feel free to reach out.
I've got a software company too, and I tell the same thing. Like, I can't believe how many times my customers will send me a message and say like, hey, I'm really sorry to tell you this, but this thing is broken. And I'm like, no, please. I need to hear this. We become a better company every time you tell me something's wrong, or even better yet, tell me something that you wish it did. So I'll second that. If you go out there and take the s2me.io, let Evan know. I'm going to be taking it too and figure out where I stand, and if I'm 48 hours of losing my primary email account and every other account in my life.
Right. Well, and that's the cool thing too, because when you tell us, we'll be making changes to help others. Right. I mean, it just flows through. It'd be different if it was a commercial. If we're trying to make money off of you, then you should be skeptical. Maybe don't tell me certain things to help other people because I'm a jerk. But yeah, in this case, we need to know.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for taking, I think, like an extra half hour to talk to me and Hot Mike 3. You're now dubbed Hot Evan #1.
Nice.
So congratulations on that.
Brother Lou, come home.
All right, brother Evan. I'll be there soon.
All
Okay.
right.
Well, thanks again for joining us for Hot Lou Happy Hour. I am your host, Hot Lou. Thanks again, Evan, for joining us. You can check this out on replay or wherever on YouTube, Facebook. I think Evan might be republishing it on their Facebook pages or their blog too. So check out the show notes because we talked about a ton of stuff, and Alyssa has a lot of work to do to get all the show notes in the post today. Thanks again. I'm your host, Hot Lou, and we'll